What's going on, everybody? About to get this show started. We're going to go live today. It's Adam with TAT Express. I'm going to wait a little bit, let everybody get on. Today, I'm going to be talking about a couple things. I'm going to be talking about, of course, truck repairs, most common truck repairs. I'm also going to be giving you an update on what I see going on with the truck market. If you guys got any questions, let me know. I'll try to answer some of your questions once we get this live going. I hope everyone's doing well tonight. Let me know where you're watching from. It's been a while since I've been live. Let me make sure everything looks good. What's going on, Johnson? Thanks for joining us. Guys, if you got any questions, I'll be answering them. Today, I'm going to be talking about a few things. Like I mentioned, I want to be talking about the update in the freight market. I want to be talking about truck repairs and just diesel talk. A couple things that I wanted to discuss about how freight is moving. I noticed I'm reading a lot of articles about how much of freight dropped year over year, and we're not looking at a strong market currently. But there's a lot of different lanes that are opened up, like I mentioned before. I mentioned that in some of my other videos, that where some of the lanes disappeared, there's other lanes that actually are booming, which are just a lot of work going on, which is good. And most of that is going to be with construction. So guys, if you're moving, like there's a lot of stuff going on with there's a lot of stuff going on with car parts. Car parts are all back on order. Car parts are automotive parts are moving fluid, very fluid now. They weren't stuck like they were back in the back a few months ago or last year. Parts were very difficult to get. Now parts are really easy to get. So if you're moving parts, that's a good sector to be in. If you guys are moving parts, if anyone's moving parts while they're watching this, let me know. Also, with flatbeds, they said flatbed freight is going up because of construction. So I know that dry van loads are kind of up and down. But if you're moving car parts, automotive parts, I know that those parts are moving, are paying well. And also, if you're moving flatbeds, I heard that flatbed construction is going to be booming. There's a lot of things that are changing. I saw a contract that they're trying to close between Mexico and the U.S. moving freight on a rail. Now, this contract is supposedly supposed to take a lot of freight off the highway, which may be a good thing and may not be a good thing, because this freight ends up being at a port anyway. So any of that that makes it to a port is going to be work for all you drivers that are out there. So I'm reading that a lot of the freight is being moved to Mexico, which is a lot of the manufacturing is being moved to Mexico. Is what's happening. It's being moved to the south. They're diverting it from Asia. They don't want to depend so much on the east. So now what they're doing is moving a lot of the freight to a lot of the manufacturing to Mexico, and that's just taking time to actually get online. It's taking a little bit of time to get online. And once that's actually online, we should see more and more freight coming through the south, and which is just going to feed the country altogether. So which is good. I mean, that's going to be good for all of us. If you guys are moving freight right now and you're doing well, let me know what kind of volume you guys are doing, and what grain hauling. Yeah, grain hauling here, that's definitely, that grain hauling's always been going with livestock. I know that they started moving exports to the ports. They're actually making them more of a priority now, which they weren't doing that before. And some people are actually reporting that where they weren't seeing a lot of truck traffic, like up north around Ohio, the Maryland area, that's becoming very, very congested area. So there's not a lot of trucks that I guess that aren't moving freight out of that area. But like down in the south, it's a lot different. Like here in Texas, I think we're over capacity, and in the south we got a lot of trucks. There's a lot of trucks out there, which is a good and a bad thing. I want to give you some insight on what a lot of the major carriers are doing to survive. I saw an article that was mentioning that a lot of the larger freight carriers were moving from contract freight, or from spot market freight, which is what a lot of us owner operators move, is spot market freight, which is basically freight that's being brokered out online on a lot of the DAT boards or a lot of the load boards that you guys use is considered spot market freight. It's what contract freight is not being covered. So what a lot of carriers actually did is they moved away from that volatility. They moved away from the spot market and they went to contract freight. So what contract freight is basically being dedicated, which was not really ideal when you have high paying freight in the spot market. When you got high paying freight in the spot market, you don't, sometimes a lot of carriers or even independents, they don't like to commit to contract freight because there's better paying freight out there. Now it's a big change. There's not, there's decent paying freight coming up. We see some difference. I think we finally hit the bottom and we're finally coming back up, but there are still low rates out there that we're seeing. But what I was mentioning is these carriers, the larger carriers, are moving to, as I mentioned, contract freight. So if you guys can maybe get on contract freight to kind of get you by, if you can't get contract freight, what you can maybe do is lease on to larger carriers as well, which have that contract freight. And sometimes they will hand that freight over to the independents if they can't handle it all. So that's just some other insight that I wanted to share with you guys to kind of get you through this soft period. But there is some good news, guys. There is some good news. I see some good news out there, and they're saying that the second half is going to be a recovery half, which is all good. It's all good. If you guys are moving trucks and you guys are looking to get in the market, if you're looking to join the trucking industry, or if you're looking to get a truck, right now is actually a decent market to get a truck, just because there's so many trucks out there right now that are being pushed out of like emission control states like California. California is pushing a lot of trucks out of that area, and they're the ones that are not the older model trucks. They're not even that old, but they're decent trucks that can be run in the South, Texas, Arizona, all the areas that aren't the states that aren't pushing too hard on the carb. So you can run these trucks a little bit easier if you're not running in California, and they're actually going at decent prices. But as I mentioned in some of my other videos about when you're buying used trucks, make sure you guys are looking at maintenance history. Dig up maintenance history. If you're getting a truck that doesn't have maintenance history, it doesn't have any kind of repair history, then you're taking a big gamble. Most of the time, those trucks are going to be going in on a big, you're going to be able to get a good deal on those. And if you see a good deal, and it's a nice looking truck, just don't be so caught up with the brightness of the truck and the color of the truck. You want to look at that maintenance, especially if it's over 500,000 miles. If a lot of maintenance, I mean, you change a lot of things up to 500, 600,000 miles. And if a lot of those things haven't been changes, like large pieces like clutches, those actually go out. Of course, you got tires, dryers, air compressors, just a lot of things that are bolts onto the engine that need service around the 500, 600,000 mark. If you buy a truck that doesn't have any kind of history of those items being replaced or serviced, then you're taking a major gamble. Check out my other videos on how to buy a used truck. You can take them to a separate shop so you can get them checked out. And those are really great practices, because it can save you a big headache for one thing. You don't want to, if you took it to a shop and they know what they're doing and they're able to hook up the computer and they're able to pull up reports. There's different reports you can pull up, whether it's a Detroit, Cummins, or Volvo, even PACCAR we work on. You can pull up history reports on those and see basically if there's a history of a frequent fault that's happening, that's something that's intermitting, anything like that looks like it's been happening very often is not something that you want to mess with. Just because if it's going in and out of a shop, if it's been in a shop, it could be a bad lemon, or it could just be so past its maintenance that they're having so much problem getting this truck back up and going. So guys, I just wanted to share with you a couple of things about that. Let me go over a couple of the guys checking in. We got a guy here. When replacing kingpins on the steer axle, do you need to do an alignment? Anytime you replace any kind of steering components, suspension components, it is good practice to get an alignment. When you're changing kingpins, if you could be all right, but it's just best to put new tires. If your tires are already wore out with bad kingpins, because kingpins are going to wear your tires out. They're going to wear your tires out. And if you're doing front end work, if you're only doing kingpins, check out everything else. How many miles do you got? If you got over 500,000-600,000 miles, make sure they're checking the drag link and also your tie rod ends. Those tie rod ends get really wore out. and so does a drag link. And also you have cross joints on your steering shaft that goes from your gearbox all the way up to inside the cab. Any play in any of those areas is going to cause a lot of wobble in your steering wheel. And also it can, if you hit a bump, it could kind of drive you to the side. I don't know if you guys ever experienced that, where you have too much play in the front and you hit a bump and you'll feel the front end kind of move, and you're kind of just driving it around. It's really a pain in the butt, and it can really fatigue you guys out if you're wrestling with that steering wheel a lot. So hopefully that helps. If you're changing your kingpins, it's probably around 500,000-600,000. If it's been around. I've been around some tough rough areas. I know these container yards can be very rough on the suspension, so make sure to check out everything. If you had wore out tires, do not use the same tires. Make sure you get new tires in the front. Don't go with any Chinese tires. Nothing against China, but don't go against Chinese tires on the front. Chinese tires can go on the back, but not on the front. You want to go with name brand on the front, matching pairs on the front. Get them balanced and make sure they're balanced correct, and go ahead and get you a 3-axle alignment. Because a lot of times if you are out of alignment, the trailers are so heavy, you're running so heavy with these trailers, all that movement and all that shifting in the back is going to move that suspension over time in the rear. Sometimes people will just get a front end alignment. A front end alignment is not efficient. That's not going to be enough, because if you have your rear axles out of a line from your front axle, it can be pushing, the rear of the truck can be pushing at an angle, and the front of the truck can try to be going straight. So what that's going to do is create a wear on your tire, because the back of your truck is pushing one way, the front of your truck is trying to stay another way. It even gets worse when you're loaded. So a 3-axle alignment, it's always the best. Any shop that's doing an alignment is going to check to see if you have excessive play in your bushings, on your rear suspension and all that. So that type of service is very important. You don't want to just do the front end of that. You got to do the rear end as well. That's a whole suspension job. And also checking out those shocks. We recommend changing out shocks. They're not that expensive. They're kind of like car shocks, but we recommend replacing shocks once a year just because they get such a beating. There are some aftermarket updated shocks that you can buy, but I haven't seen any shocks that really can stand that type of beating over a long period of time. So sometimes you're paying extra for these shocks and you're not getting more life out of them. Those are actually, it's really tough to get a long time out of these shocks, just because it's so heavy. There's so much heavy work, as you guys know. It's so heavy. Johnson said he's watching from New North Carolina. Thanks for joining us. What can cause a burnt valve on a 2014 DD15? Is a question from a truck driver. Now, if you have a burnt valve, how did you verify it was a burnt valve? If it is a burnt valve, are you showing low compression? Is that how you verify? You can verify with low compression, or it's called a relative compression test. That's a test that you can run with the PC. That's the nice things about these newer model engines, is you can do a lot of troubleshooting and testing to kind of eliminate or pinpoint where exactly your problem is happening. And with the DD15, you can do that. You can do a relative compression test. And what that would do is basically it runs a electronic compression test, and it gets the reading back from the injectors. And if you are showing low compression on one of your cylinders, then yes, you would have to look into it. Basically, look into a valve adjustment. If you haven't had a valve adjustment at 500,000 miles, then that's something that definitely needs to be looked at. Is checking out to see if your valves are out of adjustment. Because of out of adjustment valves, basically you have your rockers that are up top. The rockers are running on a cam. So if you guys know how an engine works, there's cam lobes that push the rocker and pushes it up and down. So your rockers is what pushes your valves open and close. Now there's adjustment screws on all the valve on the rockers. So over time, those adjustment screws, they don't move. It's the actual spring that kind of gets either loose, and the valve either stands up, or the screw they're the adjustment. It loses the adjustment somewhere between the spring and the valve and the actual screw. Sometimes it can get tight, sometimes it's loose. So it's always good to check out your valves and make sure that their adjustment is correct, because that will give you low compression readings and it give you low fuel mileage as well. If you do in fact have a burnt valve, then I would be curious to know what type of what type of tune do you have? Do you have an aftermarket tune, or do you have original tune on there? Because we do see burnt valves with the big subject about carb, and everybody, I know a lot of people are such against carb, and I understand the frustration when you have a system that hasn't been well maintained and has a lot of issues with it. And you have, like I mentioned at the beginning, if you're in a truck that has no maintenance on it, they're not changing out the DPF filters at 400,000 miles. They're not changing out DEF filters. They're not actually getting the EGR cleaned and serviced. They're idling too much. They're driving less than optimal duty cycles. That is going to cause you a lot of problems. It's going to cause you tons of problems. So if in fact you do have an aftermarket tune on it, then yes, that could cause a burnt valve. I see that you're replying back, driver replying back with some of the comments I'm making here. It says it is deleted. Okay, so guys, this is something that I bring up to you guys all the time. I see a comments out there. I see a lot of comments out there that don't like that I'm not advocating for carb. I'm just letting you guys know what we see. And what we see is these hack deletes, or these deletes that aren't efficient and they're not quality deletes. What they're going to do is just dump more fuel in your cylinder, because diesel engines are very simple. Diesel engines, to make more horsepower, you just need more fuel. That's as simple as that. That's how diesels work. So when they put these older model tunes on there, and yes, you're going to feel that power right up front. You're going to feel it because it's just dumping fuel in there. And if they clean out those DPF filters, now you have straight exhaust. Of course, you're going to have more power and you're going to have more pull, but this is what happens. That over fueling is going to burn your valves. It's just too much fuel. It's not efficient. When a diesel doesn't use a spark plug, kind of like a gasoline engine. It doesn't have an igniter. It basically has high compression, which is a DD15 is going to be a 17-to-1 or 18-to-1, which basically compresses the air at such a rapid pace that it heats it up. So when that air gets compressed at such a fast rate, the diesel gets sprayed in there, of course, the diesel burns. Now, if you have too much diesel being pushed in there, you're not burning all that diesel. That diesel is going to end up burning valves, causing excessive soot build up on your valves. It's going to cause it could cause scuffing on your liners because of all the carbon buildup on the pistons that are not designed to take so much carbon buildup. Some of the pistons are designed to take more carbon buildup. The newer models come with carbon scrapers, but they're not designed to have these aftermarket systems or aftermarket programs put on them. I know you guys do not some of you guys, I should say, some of you guys do not like the after treatment systems, which I understand. But as I mentioned, if you're running duty cycles, good duty cycles, you're not idling the truck, then those are going to save you some time. Those are going to definitely save you some time and money. Now, one thing I did want to bring up, and I brought this up in one of my other videos. Let me hit this button to make sure it doesn't go off here. Okay, so one thing I wanted to bring up, since I'm talking about after treatment systems, I saw an article. Now, this is an article that I saw from this is CC. Let me see who this is from. I think CCJ, which is basically just a truck magazine. CARB approves a Toyota Class 8 fuel cell kit. Now, this cell kit is basically a hydrogen kit. You're not going to see these on any of the added on to any of the existing trucks. This is going to start going on to the newer model trucks, something that you're going to be seeing later on. And this is something that I mentioned to you guys in some of my other videos, is that hydrogen is going to be the answer for zero emissions, because hydrogen, actually, you can create hydrogen, of course, from water, and the pack can go on kind of like a Thermo King pack, or a tri-pack that goes on your truck for AC and cooling. Now, it's the same kind of add-on, and basically it's just going to be adding a mist of hydrogen into your intake, so that the fuel can burn completely and actually clean. It actually cleans it while you're driving. There's a guy that I've mentioned, and I don't know, he's out there. I don't know what his actual YouTube page is, but I've seen him before. He has a cell already built, just kind of like it's smaller than what Toyota has. Toyota has one here, and it's showing pretty large. Let me see if I can do share screen here. Let me see what share. Why he wasn't coming on a lot stronger, with his product, because it's a decent product. He actually went online and was showing that his product, which is misting hydrogen inside the intake of the engine, is creating more horsepower and creating a cleaning reaction in the exhaust, in the after treatment system, and cleaning up the filters while he drives, which is very, very interesting. So now since I saw this article come out, now it looks like hydrogen is going to be the future. This is kind of what I was telling you guys before. But truck driver, I hope I answered your question. And also with a bore scope, low compression. Yep, he said it now that I've experienced it. Delete is not the answer. Nothing but problems. I'm glad that you brought that up. Some of these trucks will be okay with an eliminated after treatment system, but those are the older trucks, and it's still a gamble. So I saw an article earlier, and these articles are always coming out about, they're always busting these shops actually putting after treatment deletes on them. And guys, it's not the answer. If it was the answer, this wouldn't be. It was let me see, what was it? $600K fine from EPA. Here it is. Let me show you guys this one here. So this is another reason why nobody messes with deletes, because let me share the screen again. With the Clean Air Act, and I can understand where you guys are coming from, just because it's coming out of your guys' pocket. But I'm telling you, if you come up with a maintenance plan where you're maintaining these items and you're not waiting until they actually crap on you, and you're following a maintenance schedule, I have tons of information out there on how to actually take care of your after treatment system. You won't have to go. You won't have to go through this, guys. You won't have to go through this. So I just kind of wanted to keep you guys going. Are recaps okay for drives? Yeah, I was just sorry. I just jumped right into another question without letting you guys know. Jerome Jones asked me if our recaps okay for drives. You can put honestly, I wouldn't run recaps. I would rather run Chinese drive tires than run a recap. And especially if you are running recap tires, make sure you're looking at the DOT number. At the end, it's going to have a date. Okay. You want to make sure they're not that old. Okay. I want to say within 5 years, they're within 5 years is a good cap. And they also, when they cap them, they brand them. So you'll see, like, it's not an original marking on the tire. It's like a branding that they put on the tire. They like burn a number on the actual sidewall of the tire to kind of identify that it's been capped. and that's something that's required to be displayed on recap tires. So if you have one with multiple brandings, then that shows you that's a recap tire that's been happening more than once, and it's just a bigger chance, especially if you're running heavy, that you can rip a cap. Just and its caps cause damage. You know, they'll take off your mud flat bracket. Depends on which drive axle it is. It can cause some damage. You won't see them busting and coming apart a lot until summertime. Whenever you start hitting these highways and it's 100 degrees outside and that asphalt is very hot and that concrete's hot, and of course that's when those caps starts coming apart. If you can put Chinese tires, I would go with Chinese drive tires instead of caps. But if you are running caps, just ensure you're running a quality cap. Do a little bit of research on how to identify quality caps. I gave you a little bit of information. I'm not too much of an expert on caps, but I don't sell caps. We used to many years ago. I sold caps, but I didn't really like dealing with caps because sometimes you can get bad caps. It was back when tires were a little bit less accessible as they are now. There's a lot more options when it comes to brand new tires, and there's a lot of good deals with brand new tires. But as I mentioned, if you run caps. Just try to ensure that they're decent caps. I appreciate everybody that's joining us today. I hope you guys are doing well out there. I hope you guys are staying safe. If you guys got any questions about your truck, I'm answering questions now. I'm going to come back. I'm going to circle right back around on what I've been talking about, but I just want to keep trying to cover what you guys are looking for. Mr. Porter says he's the guy out of North Carolina. Oh no, that's he's heading to Pennsylvania, grain hauling. So yeah, how long you been grain hauling? That's I heard that's decent. That's a lot. That's a good decent work there. Everybody's got to eat, so you know we're definitely got to feed those animals. How can I add more horsepower to my 12.7 Detroit 60 series? Ken, that's a decent question. How much horsepower are you looking for? What are you pulling? There are options that are originally set in the ECM that can give you more horsepower. So if you know with somebody that has DDL software, which is Detroit software, that you can actually go in there and you can change the horsepower settings in the system, but they're only going to give you a certain amount of horsepower settings. If you're looking for more horsepower than the actual ECM, at original stock offers, then you're probably going to have to look at something aftermarket. But guys, these engines are not built to be racing. They're built to just last a long time, run a long time, and last a long time, and just put out tons of fucking torque. So, but if you're looking for more and more horsepower, 700, 600, 800 horsepower, and you're trying to, run a quarter mile and race everybody, then you're gonna shorten the life of that engine. Is my only concern. Other than that, if you do add any power adders or anything that's on something like a 12.7 pre-emissions, if you do have all that power, still kind of baby it and make that truck last. There are times that you can kind of creep on that throttle. There's a video that I posted earlier this week, or actually it was last week. It was a short. I hope you guys are liking those new shorts that we've been putting out. Just trying to repurpose our product or our content, my content, and try to get this information out to you guys. But one thing I wanted to mention is I showed you guys a turbo, and that turbo was just all tore up, and I kind of gave you some information about easing on and letting off throttles. Now, what I was mentioning in that video, or actually in that clip, was just that, and somebody actually saw a video that I saw, and it was like, basically you want to keep like an egg. You want to act like you have an egg at the bottom of your foot and the pedal, between the pedal and your foot. And you want to ease on that throttle and ease off that throttle. That's how you want to run that truck, okay? Because trying to boost that turbo up, and what you're doing, that turbo is taking a lot of beating, okay? Your turbo is the fastest thing that's spinning on the engine, okay? It spins, I want to say, 10 times faster than the engine. It's spinning its ass off. So it's pulling air in, it's compressing air. But whenever you're pushing it and you're really pushing it, say you're really throttling it down, you're trying to make that power, and you're really pushing that throttle down, you're putting a lot of stress on that turbo, because that turbo is being pushed by the exhaust, okay? And now it's trying to suck all this air in to make boost pressure. So it has a strong vacuum coming in, pushing out, and on the back turbine, you're spinning it. That creates stress in that turbine. It creates a lot of stress in that turbine. So you got one side of the turbine trying to spin faster than the front of that turbine because it's trying to suck that air and blow it. And what that does, if you look at these turbines are not made in one piece. One piece is on, and you got another piece that slides on. They're metal, but they slide on. So when that turbo is being forced by that exhaust to turn and suck that air in, you're creating a turn, a bind on that shaft. And even when you let off that throttle, and you just let off that throttle just to hear that turbo kind of just burst. You know, just let that turbo kind of make that noise. That's even, it's back. It's just all that. It's just doing the same thing. It's binding that turbine, and it can shorten the life of your turbo. So when you're dealing with more horsepower and you're pushing that throttle and you're trying to make all this power, just try to keep in mind this egg between your throttle. And I know nobody likes to drive slow, but you're in a truck, guys. You're in a big, heavy truck. You're hauling heavy freight. You're already only getting 5 to 6 miles a gallon. So if you're pushing that truck even harder, you're driving that fuel, you're drinking that fuel even more, driving that fuel costs higher, and it can just mess with your margins. So this is just some information I wanted to share with you guys. I hope this information is definitely useful. I'll try to share as much information as I can. I'm trying to stay up to date with everything that's coming out. There's so much that's coming out, and there's so much to produce when it comes to videos. We've been working on a lot of new videos. If you guys got any ideas on what videos you'd like to see, let me know, and we'll definitely get it in the works to start getting it produced. Carlos Cruz, how you doing? He says, do the rear springs wear out just as easy as the steer axle? They can wear out, but I do see steer axles wearing out more. Okay, most of the time, if you're gonna do leaf spring replacements, check them out. You know, if they're losing their arch, if your truck is leaning, if you're not able to get a good alignment, if the bushings are bad, a lot of springs can be rebushing in the rear. So most of the time we just rebushings the rear. If we have a spring that's lost its arch, if your truck is leaning, then yeah, definitely you can have a bad spring. But most of the time we see leaf springs go out on the front more than the rear. So I appreciate that question, Cruz. Thank you for joining us tonight. Guys, is this a decent time to come on live? YouTube is requesting that we go on live at 7 p.m. Is this a good time for you guys? Let me know. I'd like to hear. Anybody have any experience with an automatic truck with HSA, heel start assist? What are you having? What type of issues are you having, Lewis? What's nice about these automatic transmissions is you're probably running a Volvo or a DD15, or even a PACCAR, Volvo, iShift. Any of these trucks you can run a lot of tests with the computer to see what's going on with the truck and why it's acting the way it's acting. I saw something come up on this video over here. I guess there's a delay. I got a delay over here. So if you're having issues with heel start, what type of issues are you exactly having? I would suggest that you go to a shop that has software and they're able to actually run tests. Most of the time, a lot of this shifting, it's either electronically controlled. We see this with Volvo iShifts, is they'll get a lot of corrosion in the control box, and then you won't have good connection and won't be able to shift correctly. We see issues with clutches as well, and we also see issues with air supply going to the transmission. This is why it's very important to keep up with maintenance. When I mentioned to you guys about dryers are very important. You need to be changing out dryers at least once a year. What dryers do, of course, they just dry the air out in your system. But if you don't replace these and they end up just going past their maintenance, you can get a lot of condensation in your air tanks, and all that's going to be fed to everything that's fed by air in your truck, which is pretty much everything. You have your brake system, you have your everything. Your transmission, if your transmission is running off automatic, it uses air. Even manual shifts use air to go from high to low. A lot of the switches that you use internally, brake switches, all these are running off air. So if they get a lot of condensation on them and you have issues with them, it can cause more issues with valves, cause more issues with sensors, and also cause issues with your automated transmission. I'm going to scroll down here to see. Thanks for those videos. You guys did my pre-purchase, are now my home for my truck, running fuel locally. Nice. So Carlos says he's running fuel locally. Come on by if you're having issues with your heel start. We can definitely see what's going on. I would have, but any recap, unless they're from Michelin, I've had really good experience with them, 0 failures and low costs. Okay, so Cruz is giving his insight on I appreciate that, Cruz, sharing his information on his experience with recaps. And as I mentioned, if you are running recaps, try to get a high quality recap. You know, he was using Michelin. Michelin is a high quality recap. You know, anything that's name brand, that's doing it in house. What I kind of steer clear from is a lot of these third party or these small places that are doing recaps. They can definitely, unless they have a warranty on them, they can definitely be pretty challenging to actually they can definitely just go bad on you. That's basically what I was trying to say. I was reading over a couple other questions here. So I hope that helps. And I guess I'm sorry I got that confused. Luis Garcia, he's the one who asked the question about the heel start. And Carlos Cruz was the one that was asking a question. And I got that mixed up, so I apologize about that. Cruz is not the one that was asking about the heel start. Luis Garcia was asking about the heel start. Luis, I hope that helps. Definitely get it checked out. I wouldn't get anything replaced without checking with a service center that has software that can definitely do all those tests. I just started as a diesel tech a month ago, and I hope to be on your level one day. I love your videos. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. I'm glad that you're if you guys are looking, if you're looking for something to do, if you don't have diesel mechanics are definitely in demand. Any kind of mechanic is in demand right now. Also truck drivers as well. Truck drivers, I know right now the market is kind of soft when it comes to freight. You know, we do see it, the difference in shops, because, you know, of course, if you guys aren't getting paid well, then you don't spend money on your truck. So we see it as well. But as I mentioned, with those contract freight that's moving with a lot of these bigger carriers, that's a niche that you can try to get into to get through this little sluggish time, which is supposed to be turning around by the end of the year, or the beginning of the year. I'm sorry, mid-year, second half of the year is supposed to be picking up. So that's something that we're definitely looking forward to. Get a sip of this caffeine here. I was thinking about maybe doing our lives in the morning, just because I just feel a little bit more fresh in the morning and I can give you guys more information. But I appreciate everybody that's joined us, and you guys are awesome. Got a few viewers on today. I appreciate everybody that's trying to get to all your guys' question. Training to fight Bigfoot. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate that comment. I'm glad that you guys are jumping in to diesel technician. Diesel work is definitely always going to be a learning process. It's never going to stop learning. You're always going to keep learning, but as long as you're open to doing it, that's good. Just try to be try to be patient. Don't rush through any jobs. You're going to get faster over time. Use your right tools. A lot of tools are going battery operated tools, so do what you can to get the right tools so you can get the job done. Angel V is asking, what you recommend if you have a 2017 International ProStar with a Cummins engine parked for 6 months, even though it gets turned on every week? Well, storing trucks can always be a hassle, because anytime a truck is sitting, and it can be from a wheel seal leaking to a tire starting to leak or air leak. Anything could happen, but if you have a truck that's sitting and you want to kind of save the engine, then definitely that's good that you're turning it on. What happens if you're storing it for a long period of time, like over a year, then you definitely going to probably have to change that oil, even if you're not running it, because of the different temperature changes that happen. And since the truck is not moving, you can build up condensation inside the engine, and that condensation is just going to collect in the oil and cause contamination with cross-contamination with coolant or water, which is condensation going into your oil, and can cause damage. And it's not really healthy for the engine to sit for a long time. These diesel engines are just made to run. So if they're sitting for too long, they can, build up corrosion and start having problems. So Angel, if you have the truck park, is there a reason why you have the park? Is there not a reason why you want to run it? 6 months seems like a pretty long time. Thank you for your info, Gary Bates. Thank you for your comment, Gary. I appreciate that comment. He says, thank you for the info. Let me see here. Truck driver said, I made it to 1,000,000 miles original one box. At one time, one box was on back order for 6 months, so I deleted it. Big mistake. So this is his comment. He said it was a big mistake. Now, I'm not mocking him, but these are the items that I try to mention in my do not delete videos. That's why I try to let you guys know. These are not like the smaller diesel engines that you see, the 6.0s, the 6.9 Cummins, and the 6.0 Internationals that are in the Fords, that are in that are getting deleted more often. These are not the same. They're not the same. These are bigger displacement, way bigger displacement. If you're looking at a 6.0 and a 6.9 liter or 6.2 liter, we're talking about 13 liters, 15 liters. That's what a DD15 is. That's what the 15 stands for, 15 liters. That's what a D13 stands for, 13 liters. You're looking at, even he says a 12.7 60 series. That's a 12.7 liter engine. That's a big displacement. So fuel efficiency is even more important because you have such a bigger cylinder. I mean, the cylinder is like this big around. So if you're dumping too much fuel in there and it's not burning efficiently, then definitely over time you can definitely get some time. But 1,000,000 miles on original one box, that's really good. That's really good. What I recommend is replacing the DPF filters at 400,000. And not idling and trying to keep your duty cycles, which is not running. If you guys are curious about duty cycles, check out my duty cycle video. I can put it in the comments so you guys watch it later. So yeah, but 1,000,000 miles on a one box, that's definitely great. He says he made it 1,000,000 miles, but the one box crapped out on him and he went with a delete, which is definitely not the way to go, guys. Ghost Town, guys, thank you for your emojis, bro. Thanks for joining us. Cruz Carlos is mentioning about the recaps. He said he buys them from Michelin. Victor Run, cash on a used truck versus finance on a newer truck for a newbie. If you can find a good used truck and you can afford it cash, I would be concerned that you have enough money to cover any repairs within the next 5 months, because jumping in the trucking, you have a lot of unexpected expenses, and you're not going to know them until you start trying to get into the game. If you lease on to somebody, if they can cover some of your expenses, but you're still going to have some expenses up front. So you want to kind of factor in if you have more cash saved before you actually try to get on the road. If that's not the case, then maybe you can finance a truck and use your cash as a cushion. Even though finance charges are really high right now, finance charges are super high, and it's very tough to get approved right now for financing. So if you can get approved for financing, you can use some of your cash to keep a cushion and be there for any repairs. And I think with newer trucks, you can probably get some kind of warranty. Definitely look at warranties on any truck that you can buy. Most of these newer trucks either are being sold after warranty, so they'll have a third-party warranty. So guys, make sure you're looking into third-party warranty. Look into what type of business that they're doing. A lot of these warranty companies are very tough to deal with. They definitely will deny a lot of these repairs if you don't mention the actual failure to them correctly. It's ridiculous. They'll say, if say an injector fails and it causes the turbo to fail, but you just say I had a bad turbo or something, they'll say, oh, that's regular wear and tear and we're not going to cover it. And they can validly say that. It's all in their contracts. And a lot of these guys that are dealing with these representatives that are dealing with the warranty and to pay out your warranty, they don't have any idea about trucks at all. They don't have anything at all. They don't know what to do with trucks. They only see the trucks in the yard. They never probably even been in a truck. It's very tough. But very good question, Rick, Victor. Very good question, Victor Run. I appreciate you asking that question. If you can get financing, I would probably go with financing, especially if you have guaranteed work. If you don't have guaranteed work, that can be very, 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 very risk taking. Right now, spot market, which is a lot of the freight that you would get on a load board, is very soft, meaning it's not low. I mean, it's not high, it's low. We do feel like they do. I mean, I have seen articles saying that we've seen the bottom already. March was better than expected. April is showing more stability, is what I'm reading across a lot of articles, and they're looking for a uptick at the middle of the year. But guys, we got a lot of stuff going on. And I didn't want to mention the war across seas, but that's definitely conflict across seas is definitely has to do with flow and freight, and that's kind of why they're moving a lot of the freight to the south, to Mexico, because the labor in Mexico, they're saying is actually more valuable than what Chinese labor is. Chinese labor is more expensive and less experienced, where the South labor is actually more experienced and less price. So that's where a lot of the companies are moving. I see that happening. I see a lot of freight being moved from cross border, and that's why I mentioned earlier in the video that there's rails that are coming online that are just trying to just capture all this freight, and they're trying to bring it on in from Mexico, which is good. If it comes in on a train, you guys ain't spending all that time at the border trying to cross the border. That means it's going to be picked up at terminals, so at ports. So that's good. Internal ports. That's great. It'll be good work for everybody. DFHNAV made a comment. I appreciate your comment. He says, keep up the videos. We do watch them. I appreciate that. I definitely trying to get into a groove, a solid schedule where I can produce these videos. I'm doing a lot of the production on my own, so it's a lot of work, especially with the editing of the video. That takes a lot of time. We were outsourcing the videos, but now we're doing more of the editing in-house because we're trying to get these videos out like we like them. We're trying to get the text out there and just exactly how we like them. Some of the videos, when we try to outsource them, it's very just generic and they'll just throw it out there. But I appreciate you. I appreciate you joining us. I appreciate you watching and support. We're gonna keep going with this information. And if there's anything else that you'd like to hear about, definitely let me know and we'll get into it. I want to get into taking live calls from you guys, so I'm gonna be looking into that. So definitely stick around, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you share the videos so that we can get more people coming in and joining us. We have quite a bit of people on today, so very good. So we got another question here. Hello, sir, and thanks for your videos. What do you think about the oil bypass and the fuel bypass, like fast for Cummins? Well, if you're running a fuel bypass or oil bypass, that's to run an extended interval, correct? So especially with the oil bypass, you're looking to run extended intervals. Now, one thing I don't like about extended intervals is, now the video that I just released today about choosing the right oils and running the 15 to 20,000 miles. Now, when you have a bypass filter, you're trying to run extended miles, right? You're trying to run extended oil miles so you could get more miles off your oil change. Now, what I don't like about extended oil change intervals is you're still collecting soot in the oil. So even though you have a synthetic blend oil and you have an extra filter on there, you're still building up soot in particle inside the oil, which is just, over time, it doesn't happen on your first oil change. But if you have a long history, and this is why I recommend oil analysis. Oil analysis are super important, guys. You can install an oil sample tube, a sample nozzle on a DD13 or on a Cummins. You can order these bottles from online. You can go online and find a lab, oil analysis lab. Make sure you do your research and find a good one. They can mail you the bottles. You can buy a tube to pull the oil, so you don't have to pull it from the bottom of the pan. And you can send them the oil. And you want to do this regularly. You want to do this at your oil change. So if say you're at 15,000 or 20,000 miles and you're ready to do your oil change, that's when you want to do your oil analysis. Now, if you're running synthetic oil and you're running a oil bypass and you're running an extended 30,000, 40,000 extended oil change, do the same thing. And if you have clean oil and you're still running good viscosity and the oil is still in good condition, then you're okay with running synthetic oils at extended intervals and with oil bypass. You'll be okay with it. Now, if your tests are coming back with dirty oil, with viscosity low, high contamination, high soot in your oil, then that's definitely going to tell you, hey, I shouldn't run oil bypass, or I shouldn't run long. Oil bypass won't cause that, but I know you're running the oil bypass so you can go extended intervals. Now I want to talk about the fuel. The fuel bypass, I know that these fuel bypasses are going to have an extra pump that's going to lift the fuel up and take aerated fuel out, and you can use these in some applications. I understand that, but a lot of these newer engines, they're really not needed. You already got a 2-stage pump on a lot of these new systems. You got 2-stage pump, which is pulling the fuel already to the high pump, and the high pump is already pushing it out. When you're adding aftermarket, and what I don't like about aftermarket, like fast fuel, is you're adding all these extra hoses and you're on these extra bends, and that disrupts fuel flow, and it disrupts from the original manufacturing of the engine. Now, if I saw a video that Fast released, and it was a video that they talked about using a Fast system for a DD15 with a hard start because of the oil, or because of the fuel filter module, the check valve, which is a valve that holds the fuel at the head of the engine when the truck is off, so that you can have a startup. These check valves keep fuel from running all the way back down to your tank, because if you didn't have a check valve and you turn your truck off, your fuel's going to run all the way back down to the bottom of back to your tank, and your fuel pump is trying to pull that fuel from your fuel tank all the way back up to the head, and you can have a no start issue. A check valve always keeps fuel at the head. So whenever you're starting up, that truck fires right up, starts that fuel pump spinning, boom, you got fuel coming up to your rail or to your pump, and actually having some definitely good fuel pressure. But what I didn't like is that their solution was, instead of fixing the original problem of changing the fuel filter housing so that you can have a fresh check valve, they want to add a patch, which is putting a bypass fuel system on. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with not having original equipment on and trying to bypass like an original piece of equipment that's on a fuel filter housing. Instead of replacing a fuel filter housing, you want to replace want to put a fast system. Not all the time that's going to fix the problem. If you feel like, if you are seeing an advantage in your fuel with a fuel bypass system, like a fast system, by getting better fuel mileage, then yes, it's worth it. If you're able to go longer extended intervals, and you're with your oil analysis is still checking out good, then yeah, I would say it would be worth it. But definitely do all those different tests, oil analysis, and definitely see if you're getting better fuel mileage. Talk to other guys to see if they're getting what type of benefits they're getting from this, and before making your decision, is basically, because a lot of that stuff, I know it's not cheap. What are the most common tools do you recommend for starting diesel tech? This is from Training to Fight Bigfoot. He's asking what kind of tools. Well, there's, with any field, you're going to have endless amount of tools. You definitely want to get some good wrenches, some big long, good wrenches, some Mac wrenches or some Snap-on wrenches, some good wrenches. Don't go with cheap wrenches or even ratchets. Don't go with cheap tools. Make sure you're going with black sockets, the impact sockets, so that you can switch. You can use them with a ratchet, or you can use them with an impact. Definitely use all impact sockets is what I like to use. Impact sockets, definitely 1/2-inch ratchets, 1/2-inch breaker bar. You want some pry bars, a set of screwdrivers, good set of screwdrivers, Phillips and flatheads, all different kind of combinations. You want tweezers, pliers, all different types of pliers, wire cutters. You want, if you're doing any kind of electrical work, you're gonna have to get the butt connectors, the wire strippers. You're gonna have to get also there's endless amount of digital ohm meter, digital voltmeter. The tools pretty much never end. They don't ever end. I would definitely get in good with a tool truck and start getting your inventory up. And you're gonna buy some tools that maybe you might not use, but that's a good idea. I do have a video on some of the tools used, so you might want to check that out. It's an older video that I have, but I may want to redo that so that I can be a little bit more specific on what we have. We're almost wrapping this show up tonight. I'm only going for an hour, and I'm trying to get to everybody's comments. I appreciate everybody that's joined us today. DK asks, is any advice for a new diesel mechanic in general to include a tool starter kit? Well, DK, definitely want to get in there, and if you're starting at a diesel shop there and you don't have tools, they're probably going to have you on some tires and maybe some oil changes, which is good, but start stacking up a little bit of money, and of course get your a small toolbox if you can get you or somebody that has an old toolbox, because a lot of these guys that start in the industry, they'll have old toolboxes and they update their toolbox and they upgrade their toolboxes. So now they have too many toolboxes and they got a small tool cart. Tool carts are very useful. I would get a tool cart before a toolbox. If you have a small toolbox, use your tool cart. Tool cart, you're going to be able to use that around. As I mentioned earlier, definitely wrenches, and what I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of tools that you're going to need being a diesel mechanic. But welcome to the industry, DK. Appreciate you. Appreciate your comment. Appreciate you joining us. Victor Run has another comment. He says, thinking of buying a Penske used semi. They provide 60 months of maintenance records. Only thing holding me back is those 40K oil change intervals. Would you recommend? Well, if they have 60 months of maintenance records, do they have anything on oil analysis? 40K on oil changes is very high, very high. And Penske owns a Premier Truck Group, so they got access to new trucks very easily. Penske's very huge. I think that's one of the largest, another large trucking company that mentioned about contract freight. Now, I'm not a big fan of fleet trucks, to be honest with you, because that's where a lot of new people start, is with fleets and new drivers. So those trucks get a lot of abuse. If you do want to get into one of those, they're doing 40K miles intervals, then ask for oil analysis if they were doing oil analysis. The only damage that I would see at 40K is if they are not running quality oil and they do have a lot of buildup in their oil, is you can have some worn out mains or some worn out bearing caps, which definitely can cause low oil pressure. So appreciate that question, Victor. See if you can get some information on that oil analysis if they're running oil analysis. Ghost Sounds asking truck driver 1 million on that original box. Yeah, he gave you the thumbs up. Definitely a lot of miles on the one box. Training to fight. Bigfoot is asking again. Plenty of maintenance and repair videos. Anything and everything. I'll definitely get that out there. The oil change video that the oil, what kind of oil to use, I was just trying to get that out there because some people were using Mystic still with DD15s, and that's just a thicker oil. I had somebody ask me about Lucas. I'm not a big fan of Lucas. Now, it was okay with the 60 series. The 60 series was a beefier, is an older engine. It's a big clunkier engine. N14 is as well. That they would use Lucas to slow down leaks. Make the oil thicker, especially during the summertime. You don't want to do that with these newer engines. They got aluminum housings, like the DD15's got aluminum housings. This oil's got to make it from the bottom. On the 60 series as well, Lucas makes oil thick. So it's not really getting beneficial until the oil warms up. So when you have cold starts, that's really where I have my concerns about Lucas and additives, because anything that makes the oil heavier is just making that oil take more time, especially during the cold season, to make it up to the cam. A lot of these trucks are overhead cams. Most of them all are overhead cams. The PACCAR is probably the only new engine that's not overhead cam. Everything else is overhead cam. So that means that the cam is all the way, the cam that drives your rockers and all that is at the very top of the engine. So the oil pump has to rotate, suck the oil from the bottom of the engine to bring it all the way up to the top, so that you can have oil pressure. There are check valves as well, but thicker oil is not ideal for these newer engines. What year Freightliner Cascadia to buy with the least DEF problems? Anything 2015 and above, definitely look for maintenance records on the after treatment system. If there's not any maintenance on the after treatment system, then that's a red flag. That's definitely a red flag. If you're anything that's over 500, 600,000 miles, you should have a a good maintenance history of what's already been done. At least DPF filters replaced, DEF filter replaced, maybe a EGR cleaning. Just on the after treatment portion of the, you may have some lines replaced, DEF lines replaced. You may have some sensors replaced. Those are all good signs that you have a system that's been maintained. If you see a constant problem that's always the same, then that's something that would definitely be a red flag for whenever buying a used truck. Thanks for that question every day. Cruz has a question. Thanks for these videos. You guys did a pre-purchase. Oh yeah, I read that earlier. We did a pre-purchase for him. He was in town and now he's running fuel locally, and we are his truck shop. I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your support. I would like to see how much into in-depth video automatic clutch change newer model Cascadia. Okay, a clutch change video. Clutches on the automatic are pretty much the same. These automatic are not like car automatics where they have a torque converter, and they're not like a car. They're like semi-automatics. The way that they're building these automatics is they'll have a semi-automatic clutch that's being ran by a automated actuator. So instead of you pushing the clutch down, it's being pushed down by an actuator, whether it's air driven. Most of the time it's air driven. Now, this is gonna push that clutch down, and you have electronics inside, mostly gear shifters that are gonna shift the gears for you. These are how these transmissions are being developed. They're pretty basic. They're not like I said, they're not using torque converters. They're basically using regular clutches, but they're using actuators to push the clutch in instead of you using a manual foot clutch. So that's definitely it's definitely pretty simple setup. The clutches are a lot massive. They're a lot more massive. They're huge. They're a lot heavier. But the process of putting them on is still the same. You still turn the flywheel, you put them on. You want to make sure whenever you're doing replacements on an automated clutch that you're doing everything that drives that actuator that pushes it in, because those actuators can get weak and not push that clutch in all the way and cause wear to happen. So you definitely want to replace actuators and deal with a shop that's familiar with automatic setups, because these clutches, I noticed with the automatic clutches, they do last a little bit longer, but you can still have issues. You can still have issues around 700,000 miles. That's mostly when I start seeing clutch issues for automatic transmissions. But I appreciate that. I appreciate that question. Okay, saludas de TAT desde West Texas. Saludas, how you doing? Voy a trabajar a mi español para hacer más videos en español. I'm letting them know that I'm going to be getting videos out in Spanish. So that's the one project that I've been working on. I'm hoping to get more videos out in Spanish as well. So for all the Spanish-speaking truck drivers out there, ahí vienen más videos en español. Voy a hacer más videos en español. Siga viendo. Gracias para todo. Thanks for all the great videos from Red Top Notch. I appreciate it. I'm going to be working more to get better content out to you guys. I'm digging in for more information. So when we do cover a subject, I'm going to make sure that I'm not missing anything. So we're looking over everything. I appreciate everything that you guys do for us as well. Everyday Jay says he owns a 2016 Freightliner Cascadia with a lot of DEF issues. Now, what type of issues are you having? Are you idling the truck a lot? If you are, then definitely you can have some issues if you're running less than optimal positions, or less than optimal duty cycles, which is basically idling and not getting your regens done. If you're doing a lot of like short hauling, that's not really good for the truck. If you're doing a lot of stop and go and you're not on the highway for a good amount of time, that's definitely not good for the truck, especially with these after treatment systems. These trucks want to be driven. They want to be driven heavy as well. They want to, so those filters can get hot and bake them and get that soot out of them. It sucks to have them. I know that could be a pain, but as long as you're familiar with how to maintain them and how to deal with them, definitely want to avoid any maintenance or any repairs and have any issues. One thing I wanted to mention, I was watching one of my videos from my personal channel so that I can see how the videos look from your end, and I noticed that OTR was advertising on my one of my videos. OTR is a diagnostic software aftermarket software that I don't recommend it. Okay, because basically what you're doing is clearing out the code. You're clearing out a code is basically telling you, hey, there's a problem going on. There's a problem in the after treatment system. Okay, now OTR is all it's going to do. Okay, yeah, it's going to tell you the problem, but if you don't fix the problem and all you do is clear it out, which basically looks like what they're promoting, I'm just going to use this OTR device to clear out my code so I can keep going. That doesn't fix the problem. All that's going to do is prolong the problem, cause a problem to cost you more money. It's best to get it checked out. It's best to run a maintenance program where you're replacing parts before they actually go bad. This is what fleets do. This is what major fleets do. We worked with American Transport for a long time. When we first started, we were working with them for a long time. They had a bunch of Cascadias when Cascadias first came out, and they were sending us a lot of their work, and they were sending us work, replacing filters at 400,000, which is basically what I recommend to you guys. Replacing parts before they actually go bad is best practice. It's basically called preventive maintenance. That's going to be your best practice instead of, waiting for a check engine light to come on, and then you're trying to deal with the aftermarket OTR to clear out the codes, which I don't recommend that, guys. But it's your money, it's your trucks. You guys are always obligated. You're always able to do whatever you want, guys. I'm just trying to give you the information that I see coming through. Hey, Adam, great channel. First time I catch you on live. I appreciate that. I recently had my wheel bearing replaced just for preventive maintenance. My question is, what is the normal temp for max temp in wheel hubs? Thanks. Well, if they did the wheel bearings and you're worried about temp being too high, I don't know the actual normal temperature or maximal temperature. How are you checking the temperature of your wheel bearings? Are you using just a thermal gun? Definitely what I would do is compare it to the temperature of your other wheels, so you can get a baseline. You get a baseline of what your other wheel temperatures are doing. If that one's doing, the one that just got replaced is doing higher, then that would give you an indication that you have maybe the bearing too tight. Depends on who put it on. A lot of these newer trucks are coming with spacers, and you can see it on my wheel seal video that whenever you're putting these hubs back on, there's a spacer in the middle of the bearings that keeps you from crushing these bearings together so they won't spin. The older models didn't have the spacer in the middle, so you can actually bind the hub where it would cause the bearing to get hot. But if there's that spacers in there, you may be all right. But like I said, if you want to check with using a temp gauge and check your other wheels to get a baseline. Guys, I appreciate everybody that's joining us. I want to go ahead and try to cover everybody's comments, but we're running out of time, and we're already at an hour today. I'm going to get back live again shortly. So, guys, I appreciate everybody that's joined us today. I apologize if I didn't get to everybody's comments. I know that everybody was coming in, and I see some comments that Larry Bird, I see, thanks for your comment. I hope that doesn't happen. But adding these extended oil intervals, be sure to still lube the truck in between these extended oil intervals. Thanks. I appreciate that, Red Top Rich. We use a Lucas Fuel Synthetic, about 40% of capacity. Works great. That's why you're using them on DD15s. I appreciate you joining us and helping me or helping us with that. Angel has a comment. He said loads aren't paying enough. I'm running company driver and making more money. I told you. Yep. Well, this is what I'm reading. Okay. I don't run trucks. Because I try to concentrate on the shop, and I have enough with the channel trying to produce more content for you guys. But when I was running trucks, I still like to keep up with the market so that I can share this information with you guys. But what I see with major carriers is they're staying with contract freight. Now, it's harder for independents to get contract freight because they're contracting it out to these bigger guys. But since you have the equipment, some of these bigger guys will lease you on and let you pull that contract freight to get you through these slow times. And we got Angel said he's making more as a company driver. I guarantee you, whoever you're pulling from is probably moving contract freight. If larger carriers were not experienced the same thing that independent carriers are experiencing, then you wouldn't see mergers still happening. Mergers are still happening. Knight Transportation just bought U.S. Express, which was one of the largest mergers that ever happened. I mean, that's a huge merger right there. And what what Knight did, they already acquired a trucking company. I think it was in 2021 or 2022. One of those years, they acquired another trucking company that had so much contract freight that they saw the light. They saw, hey, well, this is how we're gonna get through this volatility. We're gonna buy other trucking companies that already have this contract exposure to all this contract freight, so that we can make it through our slow times, which is basically just low demand, low manufacturing, and just low volume right now, just across the board. And what that affects is the spot market, which is load board freight, the freight that you see on load boards. That's what that directly affects. Contract freight is different. These guys have agreements on what they're going to be pulling that load for a year. They say, hey, you know what? We want to pull this lane for you for this amount of time for a year at this rate. Now, that rate doesn't change. It doesn't go higher. It doesn't go lower. Even if the spot market is skyrocket high, that's where the shippers actually benefit from. A lot of this contract freight was made back in 2022, 2021, when the freight was crazy high, and that's what we were all expecting. Now we're expecting these high accelerated rates, inflated rates, but we're not getting it right now. And then we have the cost of fuel that went up, which we didn't have before. So the cost of goods and the cost of doing business has gone up, but the pay hasn't gone up. So that's where we see this little bit of a complication, but it's balancing out. March was better than expected, is what they said, better than expected. April is showing to be stability. It's showing more stable this month. So that's good. It's all good news. So if you are moving as a company driver or your lease on, keep on moving. If you don't have a trailer yet, if you're looking to get in, lease in with somebody, maybe somebody that has contract freight, somebody that has flatbed. Construction is going to continue to go. I'm sure you guys see construction all over the place. It's happening all over the place. There's new buildings going up all over the place. There's highways being rebuilt. I mentioned that there was I want to say 20,000 road construction projects happening, and over 20,000 new construction projects happened that begun at the beginning of the year. That's going to go on to the rest of the year, which are construction projects for highways. Big equipment moving. So definitely still a lot of work going on out there, guys, especially if you're doing heavy haul, specialized freight. There's still a lot of stuff going on out there. N14 just hit me up with a super chat. I appreciate the super chat for 199. He says, please read mine. I need your help. Let me find it here. N14, where you at? Let me see. M14. I have a Volvo D13 and I was getting pressure in the coolant. Okay. I replaced compressor, EGR cooler, and removed the head and replaced all cups. Still same problem. Also, the liner were measured and good. So you're getting excessive pressure in the cooling system, and you replace the compressor, the EGR cooler, and check the head. So you removed all those parts to. Now, did you do? I'm curious. M14. Did you do a combustion, a combustion gas and coolant test? Which one of the videos that I released we did it on the Cummins, which is basically just checking to see if it's combustion gas. If it's combustion gas, then it's gonna be something going on with that head. If that head is showing to be good, and you're getting combustion. If it's not combustion gas, and you've already replaced the compressor, then it's not compression. It's not air compressor. It would be tough, man. I would definitely have do a compression test. Basically a combustion gas in the cooling system test, which is testing the combustion to see if it's going to change the liquid from blue to green. Basically, that test is you get a sample of some green fluid. It's basically made for this. You take your cap off, you put it on top, you let some of your coolant out, so you leave a gap in there from where the coolant reservoir is to the top. You put that on top, and basically when that pressure is going into that cooling system, it's coming out the top of that cap, and it's supposed to flow through that solution that I'm mentioning, and it's going to change colors. And if it changed colors, and with the blue fluid, okay, that's exactly. Now, did it turn green or did it stay blue? And if it did not turn green, then definitely you don't have combustion gas going into your cooling system. and it's going to be something else causing combustion gas in your cooling system. Your cooling system is going to cool off pretty much. Let me see here. You got a D13 Volvo getting coolant pressure inside. You're getting excessive coolant pressure. Now, how do you know you're getting excessive coolant pressure? Is it getting pushed out of it? Are you going over 15 psi's? Where is it leaking out at? It could be a bad cap. It could be. Are you actually getting compression out of your excessive compression? That's definitely good information. It turned yellow. Okay, so that means you are getting combustion gas in your cooling system, and that would say that is a head. Even if how many miles are on that head, usually that's a head issue. If you're having combustion gas going in, and if you're not your EGR cooler, let me check something real quick. If you turned yellow and not green. If you're turning yellow and not green, let me see here. You're getting exhaust in your coolant. That's definitely a head. If you have high mileage on that head, how did you guys check that head out? If that head, how do you guys know that head is good without actually magnafluxing it and testing it? These heads can go bad without even seeing it. They can still pass tests and still like visual test, but still have issues with them. If you replace the cups and pulled the head, what exactly did you check on the head to ensure that it's not bad? If the head is high mileage, more than likely it's the head. If you ever got the truck hot, if it busted a coolant hose and the truck got hot, definitely can be a problem with that. If you said it's not the compressor, it's not going to be the compressor, because it wouldn't change that fluid from blue to yellow. So definitely have a head issue on that, man. I would say it would be the head, even though you checked it out. There's only, how else is combustion gas getting into your cooling system without any of that? The head was replaced 4 months ago. It was a used head. I took it off a machine shop and was tested. I wouldn't use heads. I'm sorry, man. I mean, I'm only telling you from experience. We don't put used heads. We don't put aftermarket heads. We put heads from the dealer, and I know it's expensive. It's expensive getting a head from the dealer, but trust me, we've installed heads before back in the day, many years ago when we first started, and we were doing reman heads. 60 series were popular reman heads, but over time it was very tough to get a good reman head, and we were having issues with reman heads where we would put them on and they would fault out after a few months. And I would say it's your head, honestly. And if you didn't go with a new head and you went with a used head, there was a reason why that head was at the machine shop. So I'm not sure if they magnafluxed it, if they tested, if they can, to me, that sounds like a head, M14. I appreciate you joining us, guys. I really do. I appreciate your question. To me, my opinion would be a head, especially if you're getting combustion gas inside the cooling system. There's really no other way that can get there besides the EGR. You can do EGR tests, but if you don't have a coolant leak, if you don't have a leak in your EGR system, it's definitely not going to be that. Definitely a good question, man. I appreciate you joining us. I'm going to wrap it up. I know I said that earlier, but I'm sure going to wrap it up this time. I want to be able to get enough rest to get another good day in tomorrow. Got some more videos that we're shooting this weekend, and I plan on going live again. So guys, I appreciate you guys joining us. If you guys want to join us next live, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you're notified when we go live, so you can jump on. Appreciate everybody that's joined us tonight. It was a good show. Thank you for everybody that's come on. I appreciate everybody's support. I will see you guys next time. Again, thanks again.